Hey, Pool Chasers. Thank you for joining us on episode 121 of the podcast. Today's topic is one that is being discussed all over our industry at the moment. The chlorine shortage is a real problem, and it's a problem that we hope we can provide some insight on today. How many of us actually understand what happened when the factories were forced to shut down? Well, our guest explains why the shortage is taking place and provides an alternative perspective from a manufacturing side of things. What happened with COVID and the plant fire are both very unfortunate circumstances. But I think we can all agree that now is a time to be proactive and get a real grasp on what is going on at each one of your pools individually. On today's episode, we talk about different options you can implement to start reducing chlorine usage and how you can start educating your customers on the situation. We also talk about a few other methods you can look into to pivot if need be. We understand that changing the way you do things is easier said than done, but hopefully by the end of the episode, you will have a few ideas you can try. Please enjoy this episode with John Boker of Haviland.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
So why don't you just kind of tell us about yourself a little bit and your role at Haviland?
Okay, so John Boker. I've been with Haviland for 8 years now. I came on board as a regional sales manager for the company, covering the Midwest, Michigan to Pennsylvania to Indiana, down south to Kentucky. And I did that job until this year. And I was given, obviously, COVID, everything's weird. They actually offered me a job as the director of sales for the pool division, which I accepted. That's my current position with the company. Now, I do get involved with some of the marketing things and that kind of stuff as well. I teach some classes at some of the trade shows. So I'm a little diversified as far as what I do with the company, but my title is Director of Sales for Haviland right now.
Nice. And you're a legend, right?
And sometimes. Yeah, I've been called that. And that's again one of the fun parts of being in the pool industry. You know, some of the things that we get to do is a little different that I would have never made a video if I didn't get, quite honestly, I would have never been on social media if we didn't start the video. So it was neat. It was exciting. So yep, that's part of me as well.
And where did that all come from? Like, why did you start doing the videos? And, you know, you've got the signature look and the signature thing that you do in the photos, all that good stuff. Like, where did that all come from?
So it was funny. I was talking with our marketing manager, and we're trying to come up with, I'd done a technical presentation in Atlantic City at the NESPA show a number of years ago now. And we're walking out of the presentation, and we were going to get dinner. It was late at night, and some guy yells across the street, "You're like, hey, it's the borate guy," because I was talking about borates and how they affect water chemistry and things. And our marketing guy looks at me and says, "Man, I don't know what you got, but we got to do something with it." I'm like, "All right, I'm in." And we're both fans of diners, drive-ins, and dives and that kind of stuff. American Pickers, you know, always that. And so we decided, how do we take information and relay it to people with that theme in a fun way? And that's kind of how we developed. I mean, the very first video, awful. Was awful. And so, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this as well. One of the things I found, so we've done some interviews, we tried to do some things like that. And you really, when that camera comes on, you got to be a little bit bigger than you normally would be, right? When the microphone's in front of your face, you got to be a little bigger than you normally would be. Well, sometimes we did some videos and it was rough, man. That camera went on and those people that you thought were going to be this great interview and this, and just whoop, nothing. So
then you got to carry it even more.
Yeah. So I found that it's interesting in the world of media. There's a lot lot of things happening. So that's fun. I love it.
That's super cool. Yeah, you're making the best of your personality. I think that's probably what they saw in you. People that have this, big personality, especially you work for a company. It's like, let's do something with that, And I think you were saying too that you were traveling around to different places and meeting different people. So put all those things together and, make some videos out of it, right?
Right. And so that was the easy transition to the video. Was I just brought the marketing guy with me, which he should meet dealers too to understand what's going on in the field, right? Because his job is to try and market things. So I would just take him to the customers that I was going to see anyways.
Yeah.
And it kind of started that way. And then, we've done everything from trade shows to product endorsements to
stories,
dealer
people's
segments
stories
and distributors and just trying to create awareness and trying to do like what you guys are doing is trying to bring the industry together. Because for so long, our industry has just been so distant. Guys don't want to share information. Guys don't want to be, hey man, we're all on the same team. All of our objectives are the same, right? Put the ball across the end zone. And if I can help be a part of that, you guys are a huge part of that right now. And so if we can get more people to do that, I think, this industry is going in places that we haven't seen yet. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
For sure. It's awesome, man. We love what you're doing. For those that don't really know what Haviland is, I know we're going to do some stuff later, get more in detail, but can you briefly give us a little overview of what Haviland is?
So Haviland as a company, we are an ESOP company. We're employee owned. We're a chemical manufacturer. We have different divisions. I happen to be in the swimming pool division, but we also do a lot of platings and coatings and solvents, and we do some contract type packaging. There's our other division will, if you bring us a formula or a thing, we can also fill a bucket of your stuff for you as well. So we're a little diversified in that respect. The pool division is a big portion of what the company is. And we do everything from our brands to some distributor labels. And so we do quite a few different things. I mean, operations is always talking, hey, Boker, you got to cut SKUs, man. We got too many SKUs in the products. We got to get less. And I'm like, everybody's got their own thing. So it's fun. But Haviland as a whole started 1934, and it was a family-owned business for many, many years. And the family sold the business to the employees. And right now, the last Haviland has just retired. Bernie Haviland, great guy. I mean, he was one of the guys in the business that was one of the fun guys. A lot of people knew him, and he has just retired. And now his name stays on the building, but there's no longer a Haviland here. It's owned by the employees.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And why did they decide to do that, employee owned? I know that's more of I know there's a lot of big companies like in Europe and things like that that do that, but I haven't heard of too many companies in the U.S. doing that.
There's a few of us in the U.S. It's about tax breaks. It's about money, right? I mean, there's different things that happen when you're owned by the employees. There's now, stock values and things like that are involved, but it's still it's not a publicly owned company at that point, right? The employees still own it. So,
but most importantly, the employees have a say-so in the way that the company is ran, correct?
Well, you got it. Now you have incentive to be better, to do better, to be your best. And honestly, the people here are outstanding. It's a really cool company. The CEO of the company can walk into the warehouse and talk to the packager on line 2, and they know each other and they can say hello. And it's not this distant corporate America type business. And that was one of the things that I really, when I took the position with Haviland, it was, man, I fear the corporate world sometimes. And this was a really good fit for me because it wasn't that. It was very, I don't want to say that it was kind of a mom and pop kind of feel, but it wasn't, it's not as corporate structure as some of the bigger guys are.
Right.
Yeah. We'll definitely want to tell that story later down the road for sure and get more into that. But
Yep.
the reason we're talking today is, I had lunch with you a couple weeks ago and we really started talking about a lot of different things, but what's going on in the industry with regards to chlorine, specifically trichlor tab shortage, and really enjoyed the conversation. Thought it'd be really cool to share on the show. So maybe you can go back pre-COVID and kind of talk about the state of the industry. And then when COVID and the shutdown hit, kind of what goes on from there from a manufacturing side.
Sure. So 2019, rolling out early buys or heading into the industry, right? Everything's going. And again, you guys out west is a little different than in the Midwest and the East because it's really seasonal where we are, right? So things are happening, everything's getting pushed out, and all of a sudden, COVID hits, and you go into lockdown. Now, once that hit, I was actually in Chicago teaching a class, and my wife calls me on the way home. She says, "Hey, you better stop and get toilet paper because there's none to be found." I'm like, I ain't stopping to get toilet paper. But anyways, so what happens is COVID hits and all these states start locking down. Well, everybody doesn't lock down at the same time. It's scattered.
Right.
And so what you have is that different parts of the manufacturing process have become broken now because you might not be able to get resin for a bucket, right? You might not be able to get corrugate for a box, a cap for a bottle, labels. So all these things happen, not including material that if it's in a state that's shut down and it's non-essential, they can't produce it. Haviland was an essential business because we produce sanitizers.
Right.
At that point, we actually started producing some hand sanitizer as well, where a lot of guys shifted gears because things were shut down. Pool dealers couldn't open. And so all of those breaks in the supply chain cause a catch-up game to start. And so once you could go into production and people could open up again and get back into their stores and get back into the field to service things, well, the manufacturers are behind on production now because we couldn't have all those things to produce and get things out. So you start playing catch up. And when people got locked into their homes, what did they do? They started buying more pools, more hot tubs. I mean, I don't know how many in-ground builders I know. They're sold out through 2021 and into 2022 now. The hot tub market, those guys you ain't getting a spa until next spring.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff happens and it creates a demand in the marketplace. Well, now you create shortages in the marketplace. So let's say I used, I don't know, 1 million buckets, right? Well, now I've got orders for 2 million buckets and I'm behind already 500,000 buckets.
Mm-hmm.
And all that stuff snowballed and it just kept getting worse and worse. And as the point in, I don't know, probably late July, August, when you start to catch up and now you start to say, okay, this is happening. And then there's a giant catastrophe that takes place in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurt. That just kind of put everything to a halt all of a sudden. And so going back to the supply chain issues, one of the big thing is that some of these products that we use in the pool industry are also used as sanitizers in other industries. I'll give you, for instance, non-chlorinated shock, monopersulfate, used heavily in the business, uh, is also used as a hard surface cleaner. I think there's more EPA claims for that than any other product I've ever seen, as what it can kill and how it destroys and what it does. And all of a sudden, there's restrictions on it because the people that produce the raw goods can only produce so much. And what are they going to do? They're going to use it to help the COVID spread as opposed to keeping a swimming pool clear. Now you're on allocation, right? There's only so much material that you can get. That's just one instance. Algicides. And so I'll give you Maquats, a 10%, 50% style algicide. They're used as disinfectants in like hospitals and in other places, a derivative of it. So what happens? The supply of that material goes away. Costs go up. So it's been a really, since I've been in the industry, and so I started loading trucks in 1989, I've never seen anything like this ever happen. It's been quite challenging. The one thing that I will say is most manufacturing, the mindset of business has changed over the years to the point that everyone's trying to keep inventory levels lower, right? We want to do more on-demand production. We want to do all those things. Again, when something happens and there's a break in these chains, you don't have the supply to keep moving as well. So all of those things came together and really created a problem. Now, once it happened, I can't travel. I can't go on the road and see anybody, right? It's, hey, you got to stay home. We don't want you traveling. Great. Well, what am I going to do? Well, I'm 2 hours from our plant. So I got up at 5 a.m. every day and drove 2 hours and put chlorine in buckets because we needed help. In the midst of all of this, with the supply chain and things, you also have employees that are nervous. They don't understand what's going on. People don't want to come to work, and so I'm in the back with the other guys in the back, and we're putting chlorine in buckets. It was myself, our chief sales officer of the whole company, and my boss in the back putting chlorine in buckets. We did what we needed to do to get through it, and it was something that had to be done. I mean, at one point we were some of our brands have different colored lids on buckets and caps and things like that. And I just had to start calling people and say, hey, listen, that bucket might come with a pink lid because I ran out of the blue ones that you normally had, or it might have a white one. Everyone was appreciative because they could all understand, hey, Boke, whatever it takes to get us the product, that's all we want. Great, we'll do it. And that's what we did. And it was a struggle, but honestly, it was kind of fun. It wasn't fun until that chlorine starts tickling your nose and you start sneezing and you can't stop. But other than that, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, I really liked, when you shared that with me the other day, because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of emotion. It's a very difficult thing to go through, this chlorine shortage, but kind of wanted to hear that story and have you share it because it puts it in a little bit different perspective, because when you understand why it's happening, it gives you a little bit better of an understanding. So it's really cool that you guys just did what you had to do, and not very often you're going to get those people in a room packing buckets, right? It's a different thing. But it's something that really shows kind of what you're going through, and that shutdowns happen. People don't come to work, and then if you are deemed essential, then you have to go through, you still have to produce in some way. And then, like you said, it's just difficult to get different pieces, and it may not be, if it's not one thing, it's something else, like a cap or something else. It's just so many different production sites that have shut down. So it's a cool perspective.
It's good to understand that. And I hope that the industry, because there were still some people that didn't understand, and I'm glad you allowed me to explain that it wasn't just we didn't want to put stuff out there and give it to you. It was we couldn't. I mean, I might have had the chlorine to put in the bucket, but I might not have had the bucket, right? I might have had the lid, but I didn't have the bucket, or I didn't have the chlorine, or I didn't have that chemistry. Hot tub guys, pool guys, above ground pools. Never seen as many above ground pools sold this year. The last time I can remember, it would have been my first year in the industry, which was 89. And according to everyone I've ever talked to, 88 was the year. That was the year that broke all the records. Yeah, I mean, we've been in a sold out position as an industry all year. So it's been difficult. And consumers are so used to looking at something and saying, hey, you know what? I just saw that. I'm going to buy that hat. What do? Jump on their phone, buy that hat, and it's there at their house in 2 days.
Right.
What do you mean? Amazon can deliver it in 2 days. You guys telling me you can't deliver? Well, there's a difference. So, yeah, it's important to get that message across.
Yeah, really appreciate you sharing that. Here at Pool Chasers, we're all about sharing information so that you can become even more knowledgeable pool professionals. The folks at Pentair get that. And to show their appreciation, we invite you to enroll in the Pentair Partners Incentive Program. This flexible and simple program rewards you for your loyalty, starting with your very first sale of Pentair equipment or systems. Not only that, but being a partner gives you immediate and exclusive access to programs and training events, all which are developed to help drive even more business to your door. So to start earning rewards, visit pentairpartners.com or click the link in the write-up below. So the shutdown happens, and like you mentioned, the catastrophe of the fire at the chemical plant. Can you kind of explain then what kind of effect that has on the industry?
Yeah, so it's not good. It was not a good thing to happen. And that facility produced about 40% of the US production of trichlor. That's a huge impact. And so you take that out of the marketplace, and where are those pounds going to come from? How are you going to get them? The other manufacturers of the molecule cannot produce that much more to sustain what's going to happen. So there's going to be to look overseas. We're going to have to do that. Thank goodness our pounds came from some different places, so we didn't get affected by that as much, but everyone's on allocation. As soon as that fire happened, everyone sent out force majeure letters. Everyone. Boom. Here's what's going to happen. And what that does is it puts everything on allocation. So there's no guarantees that you're going to get the pounds that you need to supply for the next month or two, or how, and out west and down south, it's a huge problem right now that guys are running out of stuff. My guess is there's going to be some guys are going to have to pay some tariffs and bring material in from overseas, which is another problem. And what does all that do? That drives prices up. There's nothing we can do about that. It just is going to happen. So one of the biggest obstacles, it was funny. So I get this new position. A week into it, this fire happens. Immediately, phones start ringing off the hook. Hey, we want to buy more truckloads. Hey, we want to do this. Hey, we want to buy. And I say, hey, everybody pump the brakes. We don't know what's going to happen yet. We cannot do this. And I made the decision, as well as some other people here at Haviland. We had a big meeting, and I said, this is unfortunate, but I have to make a decision to supply the customers that have been faithful to me over the years and not look outward for gaining, I guess, new business. And so that's, again, something that hurts a little bit, but those decisions have to be made. And I know that I'm not the only one that's made that decision. Most of the chemical guys have kind of done that. Um, the the distribution side of things, where everyone wants product in house, they all want it now because they know what's going to happen, and what they think is that, well, if I place my order early, I'm first on the list to get the pounds. And I just had to have conversations with people, say, listen, I'm going to give you the pounds. You don't need to flood me with orders. I just need to figure out a way to deliver them in a timely manner with the pounds that are available at the time. So it's a huge tragedy, and it's not good. It was not good for the industry as a whole. It's going to affect everyone. It's going to be tight. Chlorine, dichlor, and trichlor are going to be tight. Also, moniker sulfate, that non-chlorinated shock, tight for 2021 because everything's on allocation now. There's only so much you can produce. And if that's the case, you got to start getting creative. I eliminated some sizes, right? So that I could improve efficiencies and create an easier delivery system to our distribution centers, right? So those things are happening. It's going to be, how do we get creative? And how we do that is going to be difficult, because the tariffs that, and I'll talk about China specifically. So when those tariffs are set in place, they call it a sunset clause, I guess is an easy way to understand it. So let's say I need to bring in material from overseas. I have to put in escrow enough money to cover whatever that tariff is on those pounds. So let's say this year it's 80%. Okay. Well, it doesn't matter. They go back after 2021's done. They'll go back and revisit those tariffs and say, you know what? That wasn't enough. We're going to bump it to 150%. They have that opportunity to do that. And so now, where's the chlorine price is going to go? That 80% that I put in escrow is not nearly enough to cover that material. So guys are going to be looking for other ways to extend those things, I guess. It's going to be tight. It's going to be, we're just going to have to manage it properly as an industry. I think that is the biggest message to get out there is, yes, we can have it. Yes, we can still produce. It's just going to be, you can't go willy-nilly, just keep throwing tablets in pools and running chlorine counts at, 15, 20 parts per million, because it'll keep the pool clear, right? If you keep it that high.
Right.
So you're going to have to look at different things to maintain that.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to understand is, most of the country uses trichlor, has been trained on trichlor, and when something like this happens, you don't really know, I guess, maybe you're seeing it happen with the dollars and it's disappearing, but that's the most important thing to understand is, like, it's going to be difficult for the manufacturers to get, prices are going to go up, and things are going to change and going to have to change the way you kind of do business. But thank you for touching on that. And
For sure.
So we know that there's alternative chemicals out there, and there's different things that you can do instead of using, the trichlor tabs and things like that. But let's talk about some of the things that people can do to reduce the amount of sanitation needed in pools. And, you were talking about spas and things like that, because you were talking about the communication that, the letters that the manufacturers are having to send out. And I think that same thing has to apply with pool service companies, or anybody that needs to put tabs in pools, that a well-crafted email needs to be put together. And we have to educate the pool owners, the homeowners, on what's going on. And can you touch on that a little bit? Maybe some things that, we can do to help educate homeowners on?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's getting people to understand um, that there will be a little difficulty, but there's ways around that. Um, Balanced pool water is huge. If the pool water stays balanced, the chlorine is more efficient. It maintains. You don't need as much. We can keep the water clear. We don't have big swings, um, and borates. And I'm a borate guy, right? The guy yelled at me in Atlantic City. It's the borate guy. So I'm a huge proponent of borates, and it's still even over the past few years, it's being more and more recognized as a alternative buffering system for the pH in pools. Um, but it does a multitude of things. I mean, what a lot of people don't know, it's a natural chelator with calcium. So guys are using it on plaster startups to help cut down on plaster dust and maintain proper pH levels. It buffers that pH. It maintains a more stable pH in the swimming pool for a longer period of time. In the world of salt, which is again with the trichlor thing that's going to happen, we're probably going to see more salt being installed. And borates is a huge asset because the byproduct of splitting that molecule and making chlorine is caustic, which is a pH of about 14 that thing's pooping out every time it's running. So if I can maintain a more stable pH, I got a more effective sanitizer in the swimming pool water. Simple things like brushing pool walls, running your pump, cleaning the filter, backwashing, chemically cleaning filters. These things to reduce the amount of contaminants in the swimming pool will extend the life of your chlorine, right? You stretch that chlorine out longer. It doesn't have to fight all those things. So uh, simple things that we do can really uh, decrease the amount of chlorine that we have to consume in the swimming pool. Having a up-to-date logbook so that when I send out my technicians to into the field, we know where things are at, right? This pool's balanced. This pool's hey, this guy's pH is always messed up. It always drops, and we got this problem. We need to fix that. Let's adjust these things and maintain those levels as efficiently as we can. So there's things that can be done. And again, a simple email, a simple discussion with the consumer, with the client, makes it easier for them to understand why I want to use this extra thing in your pool, Mrs. Jones, right? Well, we've never used that before. Why do I need that? Well, because, chlorine's tight this year, so I want to make sure we get the most bang for our buck. And maybe we're going to start using some enzymes once a week to help break down the crud in the water, right? We got the borates in there to keep the water balanced. And we're going to use these enzymes to break down the yuck that we've introduced into the water. And, it's not a bad idea to take a bath once a week either, instead of using your pool. So those simple things that can work. Now, depending on the borate product that you use, some of those products are actually EPA registered as an algistat. I mean, we make a couple versions of borate, and one we register throughout the country with the EPA as an algistat. So those things are important, right? If the pool doesn't turn green, I'm going to use less chlorine, right? If I can break down the yuck with some enzymes, I'm going to use less chlorine. Keep my filter clean. Brush the pool walls, keep that biofilm off of those dead spots in the swimming pool. I laugh, I joke it with people. I say, the best investment you can make is a beer helmet. You ever see the beer,
Yeah.
2 cans with the hose, right? And you put that beer helmet on, you load it up on Sunday morning, and you go and brush your pool. When you got to reload, you're done brushing the pool, you're good, go in the house. So it's those things that small stuff that we can do. And I think those are important messages for everyone in the field to get across to those consumers.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, we talked a lot about this, that if we were still running our pool company, we would inform all of our customers that this is what's going on. And it's getting more difficult to get our hands on trichlor tabs, which is the traditional way of putting the chlorine into your pool, and educating them on the shortage of this stuff, but also educating them on how to treat the pool with more respect, because we've got, there's some people that let their dogs go in the pool whenever, they're peeing in the pool, they're doing all kinds of different things. So we have to let them know that these things that everybody does, some do, some don't, but those have huge effects on the swimming pool and the sanitation. So what can we do? We can not do those things. We can not use so much sunscreen. We can take showers. We can educate our kids on, like, if you have to use a restroom, like, get out of the pool. Like, you should be doing that anyway. We would also be discussing with them, other alternatives, draining the pool, reverse osmosis, maybe letting your pump run twice as long, or, it's a good time to get you on a variable speed pump so that we can run it for maybe 24 hours a day and it still costs either the same or less, whatever it may be. More filter cleans. If you're doing it every 6 months, maybe it needs to be done every 3 months. So I don't think you can I think the problem is a company might come out of nowhere and just say, we got to drain your pool. We're doing this filter clean every 3 months, and we're going to be you need to put this like salt generator on your pool. And it's like, why? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
sure,
get it in right now, get it in black and white in the email, especially we're going into the fall and winter, because we got to be prepping ourselves for the spring and next summer. But getting all that information across, and not to just do it, they truly need to understand, because if they don't understand, then you lose accounts, you lose money. You don't want to do that. And you're taking on new accounts with new bids. You're in that backyard. You have that face-to-face. You better believe I'm going to be there telling them about this situation and what they can expect. And if we're all in this together. If another company says any different, they're lying.
Right. Right. No, I agree.
Unless they're making
completely.
Tabs.
Right. So this year I'm putting on 2 classes in Atlantic City about that specifically, to help chlorine and ways, alternative things you can do to extend the life of that. You talked about the variable speed pumps. I mean, when I started, the guy I started working for built gunite pools. That's all he did. He was a builder, service company. And all he put on was like a 0.5 horsepower pump on all these pools, 40,000 gallon pool, 0.5 horse pump. But the rule is you turned it on in the spring and it didn't turn off until you closed it. It ran continuously. With the technology today with variable speed pumps, you can do that so efficiently and keep water moving, because when water sits still, stuff grows, right? Yeah. That's when those problems happen. And you mentioned the little kid going to the restroom. I'm going to have to change my new rule. I always had a rule is you can pee in the pool, just don't get in the pool to pee. So I'm going to have to tell everybody now they got to get out. So.
I tell everybody, I'm like, I'm a pool chaser. I got special technology in the pool. If you piss in the pool, an automatic, email gets sent to everybody. Let them know that you pissed in the pool.
Yeah. I think it can be a blessing in disguise in a way. I understand dealing with it is a pain in the butt, but everybody knows that trichlor with the COIA in the water is not a good thing, and everybody's just used to pounding tabs in a floater. It can be a blessing in disguise to start to transition to these alternative chemicals or enzymes or borates, UV, ozone, these other options that are there to help the water be cleaner and lower these CYA levels. And that's what you talk about, draining pools. Like, this now gives you an option and a reason why to drain the pool. Like, if the customer's been pushing back for so long, this helps with that transition. Like you mentioned, filter cleans, but I think I wanted to touch one thing we did, which was cool. We had Kyle as a service manager, who did a phenomenal job at this, but we would have one meeting a week, and one of his main jobs was reporting chemicals usage of each technician to us. He'd walk us through and say, Robert's using this and so is using this. And if we saw a fluctuation of, hey, this guy's using 60 more tabs than everybody else, or this person's using 19 gallons of acid when everybody else is using 6, like, what's going on? You pay more attention to, and this is what really people are going to have to do, is tighten where you're spending money on chemicals. I think there's so much overuse of chemicals. Even that's why we did that, was to see, no, we're spending a ton of money in chemicals. Let's make sure that it's actually needed. So that really helped with us understanding where our money was going. And then the technicians are a huge piece of it. I mean, you have to educate them and communicate to them as well. Hey, we are going through a big problem right now. Like, you cannot be filling a floater every time just for fun. You got 4 or 5 tabs. If that chlorine's a 5, you don't need 5 more tabs. Like, you got to really start training them more in understanding water chemistry and teaching them, because their job, really impacts you and how much money you're spending. And if they're not understanding exactly how to use chemicals and adjust the water, then that's a problem too. So really educating your team and then understanding what's going in the water at every pool is a really big help, I think, for that.
Sure, absolutely.
Since we are talking chemicals today, we wanted to talk to you about the First Choice brand. Today's big box stores and low-margin internet dealers are more than just a concern. They are a serious problem for every business that services pools, sells supplies, or installs pool equipment. This problem exists because those other shopping options devalue the pool professional's knowledge and experience. You see, legitimate brick and mortar and professional service businesses, which are the core of our industry, all have to bid on jobs while dealing with internet interference. That cuts profit and hurts their customers. Because of this issue, Pool and Electrical Products created the First Choice brand to protect pool professionals by offering top quality products in a brand that is exclusive to them. And First Choice products are not sold on the internet. The First Choice brand is made for you because their mission is your success. To find out more about First Choice, check out episode 106 of the podcast or click the link below.
So let's discuss some other options besides trichlor tabs that you can implement as an alternative.
Sure. I mean, I think salt is going to start to gain a bigger presence than it already has. And there's some inherent issues with everything, right? Depending on what product you use, there's issues. So if you're using trichlor, what's the big deal? Well, I get cyanuric acid, increases. If I use salt, well, I'm creating a corrosive environment. I mean, you guys wouldn't know this, but in Michigan, we got snow. And they put salt on the roads, right, to melt the snow. And what does it do? It rusts out your car.
Right.
So, there's things that can happen. The bleach market, I think, is going to probably gain a more market share this year as well. But again, inherent issues with bleach. As opposed to a product like a tablet, that's 99% chlorine, you've got something that's 12.5% chlorine. A lot of inert, a lot of water, right? High pH. Tablet has a low pH. So there's problems with everything, but understanding how those products work will help you use them properly and avoid issues. Cal Hypo, I think, will start to make my big fear is in the world of commercial pools, Cal Hypo is used quite often. Cal Hypo and bleach, those are really the two main. There's a little bit of gas out there still, but not a whole lot of guys are using gas. But with Cal Hypo, you press that into a tablet, and it looks like a white 3-inch tablet. You drop that into a trichlor chlorine feeder, and you might move from Phoenix to Detroit real quick. Things go kaboom, right?
Right.
My fear with that is just that if people are going to look for that alternative route, be very specific, make sure the homeowner understands what is happening here, that they can't run up to the hardware store and buy a bucket of tabs if they can find them at the hardware store and drop them in your chlorine feeder that you got cal hypo in. Uh, that one I'm a little fearful of. Granular cal hypo, adding it as a manual treatment, I get. But again, you're talking about a volatile product, so you got to make sure that you store it properly. If you mix a little cal hypo and a little algicide, you can watch it smoke. It does cool stuff. You don't want that happening in your garage. So the other thing that I think we're going to see more of is some of the equipment guys do like a 2-part acid and bleach system, um, which is, again, cool stuff, creative, new. Again, make sure that it's being handled properly. Make sure that if you have bulk acid or bulk bleach, that it's not in those containers, that it's stored properly. Automation is where our industry is going. Because let's face it, we all want to control everything from our smartphone, right? I mean, I installed a new sprinkler system so I can change my sprinkler settings from my phone. Why did I do that? I don't know, but I did. So with that automation on these new pool builds comes these options that they can use. Chlorine generators, the sense and dispense type systems. So all of those things are going to be implemented, and as either the guy that's selling the product to a homeowner or the service technician in the field, you need to understand how those products work, how to install them, right? And you cannot rely on the sales rep that's covering 6 states to be there to put them all in for you. So if you want to do these things, you got to educate yourself. I'm a huge proponent of education, of getting people to understand how stuff works. And I really think that that's one of those things that gets a little lost in our industry is guy doesn't want to take a CPO course because it costs them $400. Well, you know what? You're now certified. You now have something to show people, to tell people, hey, listen, I got this card. I'm reputable. I've taken the time to do it. So um, uh, educating yourself on how things work and use them properly is huge.
At the end of the day, when you switch to a different alternative, or if you're looking into that option, it's really just understanding how that works. So if you're going to switch to salt, learn that, understand what it does to the water. Everything you said has a byproduct introduced to the water. So you're raising TDS levels, you're doing things, you're changing the way that the water is reacting. I mean, you're adding stuff regardless of what you're using, you're adding something to the water. So understand what you're adding. And like you said with the cal hypo, I think they have some cool options, with the slow dissolve cal hypo tabs now, cal hypo feeders, cal hypo can now go in the skimmer per se in a way. But again, you're now introducing a product that a homeowner is probably not aware of and doesn't understand. So there's a big education piece there. If you're going to switch your team to that, you have to get brand new floaters, you have to get brand new chemical feeders. There's a whole change to that. And you just really got to understand that when you change to an alternative, just really get to know that and the safety regulations behind it and what you need to do to implement it properly. And with the chemical feeders, they're awesome, but there's a big learning curve there. You got to educate yourselves, understand how they're working. Where you live in Arizona in the summer, I mean, you put one of those chemical feeders on a wall here, it's not covered. I mean, that's going to kill it fast. They work really well commercial side because they're in a pump room, and no UV hitting all the time. So, if you're in somewhere like Phoenix Market or Texas where there's sun, Florida, California, there's always sun beating down on those things, and there's wear and tear parts that are going to be needed to be replaced. So you need to understand that. Your chlorine is going to be sitting in the sun in those tanks. It's going to be diluting. The liquid's going to be diluting you got to only use the right amount. So there's a ton of those things. There's a lot of options. Some of those things cost a lot of money. You got to, again, the way I think, like you said, Greg, the way you introduce that to your client has to be done properly, where you're not like, hey, we're just going to put the system on. It costs $6,000. It's like, no, we need to teach you why. And let's talk about how the water is going to feel for you. It's going to change the way your family interacts with the pool. These things are going to be different. And there's also like cheaper alternatives like the liquidator or all these things out there that can be done where it's like, hey, you can't afford $6,000, but there's a $500 part that will help. There's just different things you can do, but you really just have to understand when you change over to something, there is, byproducts to that too, and just really get to know what you're using.
Great point. And I just want to add that what people need to understand is if you switch the type of sanitizing that you're doing, everything else that we talked about still applies. The borate's keeping the water in balance, cleaning the filter, breaking stuff down with enzymes. All those applications are still needed.
Right.
And if you do those things, if you focus on some of those things, you extend the life. So you put a bleach system on the pool, right? And it's pumping liquid chlorine into the pool. That's great. But you're just pumping a bunch of liquid chlorine into the pool. You're not becoming more efficient with how you're maintaining that body of water.
Right.
And so, that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, and the pushback on education has always been a problem in the industry. And I think this is going to force the hand of a lot of people and start to not just use trichlor because that's what, the person that taught them 30 years ago did, and they haven't changed anything. There's a lot in different alternatives, and that's really, I think, understanding how to use less sanitizer is a big key. And what we want to talk about here is just it makes it so much better if you can use less. And I also think, this gives us the opportunity as an industry to raise prices on service. If you do it properly, you introduce the email to your customers correctly, and you are now using alternative chemicals and secondary chemicals that make the water better, those cost money. You can do it where, we're doing more filter cleans more often, we're draining your pool more often. There's a lot of money to be made. Like some of the biggest catastrophes of all time, there's a secondary side of that where it changed and altered the lives and the way we do things. And you can, as an industry now, I believe, raise prices if it's done correctly and unify together as one and say, now, we're going to charge this amount per month, and the kind of force the customers in a way to understand that and take that pricing. Because I think we're all, especially Florida and different markets, it's really underpriced. It's really cutthroat markets. And, if everybody kind of tries to like jump on board and raise them together, there's a really opportunity there, I think.
Yeah. And again, labor costs are going up.
Right.
In every aspect. So I agree with you. It's a great opportunity to bring the industry together as a whole so that we can all be on the same page, because for so many years it's just been scattered. I think this year, if nothing else, has given us an opportunity to become a little more focused as an industry and understand that we're all playing on the same team, right? We all have the same objective, and we need to get a little more polite with one another, I guess.
Yeah. And before we wrap it up, I just want to reiterate, we understand that this is a real sensitive subject, and what we're talking about is not an easy thing. And we have a lot of sympathy for everybody going through it. And we're just trying to give alternatives and options and talk about those things so that people can get educated on that. But we get that it's a very big deal right now. And hopefully, this helped them in a way.
Yeah. Well, this is a great conversation, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today to talk about all this stuff, because it definitely needs to be discussed and shared with everybody out there taking care of pools. So we really appreciate you.
Well, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. It was very fun. I like the media side of things. So it's good to have conversations and to get the message out. And again, you guys are doing a great job at what you do to get that message out. So anything I can do to help you guys, you just let me know, and I'm always available for you.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Pool Chasers. Thanks for checking out this episode. Did you know that each episode has its own page on our website? This is where you can find more information about the guest and episode topic, as well as all the resources that we discuss throughout the show. To get to the webpage, click the link below. Also below, you will find links to the sponsors of the show, as well as links to follow us on our social media channels. On our channels, you will find some of our favorite clips and bonus material. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Our tag is Pool Chasers. We also have a Facebook group for the Pool Chasers community. Here you will find like-minded professionals all looking to make each other better. One last thing. If the episode has brought you value, please check out our Patreon page to support us. And if you could please rate and review the podcast, we would love to hear what your favorite topics are. Thank you for your time and your ear.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.